Hi everyone, today I'm gonna show you how I painted this pretty easy landscape, and it's actually already been sold through my art exhibition that is going right now actually. It was such an amazing experience. I have to preface this painting by saying that it's been painted quite a long time ago, about 6 months ago probably, and I've gained a lot of experience since then, and I see a lot of mistakes that I did during this painting. And I was actually hesitating if I even want to post this because it has a lot of things that I would do differently right now. But then I thought to myself, well, the end result is not terrible, obviously, because it was sold quite fast. And since it's been sold, I think that the viewer actually liked it, and whatever mistakes I did, I overcame them. And I think it's quite useful to see for beginner artists, not like just a perfect process from A to B, but actually how you make mistakes, how you overcome these mistakes, how you can fix something. So that's what I'm gonna show you here. And sorry I've been talking so long, and I will just try to recap what I did. First thing I did is I sprayed the back of the paper, and then I also made the front of the paper really wet. This way the paper sticks to my easel and I don't have to tape it. It's a very useful life hack. And then I made my first mistake, which was creating a really weak sky. I diluted the paint so much that things that I did pretty much disappeared once the paper got dry. So don't do that. It would be best if you paint the sky from your first wash and then just don't touch it at all. That's the first heads up there. And for creating the field, I'm just mixing random earth colors like yellow ochre, burnt sienna, burnt umber, with different maybe greens and blues like ultramarine blue and phthalo blue. And another mistake that is really bugging me as I'm watching this video is that I'm using a tiny brush. Here I switched to a much bigger brush. That was actually the only bigger brush I owned at that time. And after I did this painting, I ordered some of the brushes that I actually paint right now with, and they're much bigger for this format. And it's not a good idea to paint such a big painting with such smaller brushes, because it will be lines on lines on lines and it won't look good in the end. As you can see on my first wash, I go through all of the hay bales and I just leave a little bit of highlight on the hay bale that would be a focal point. And here I'm messing with the sky again. I'm trying to save it, and I'm struggling a lot here. I'm using phthalo blue, and for the shadows and the clouds, I'm mixing imperial purple and neutral tint, and I'm trying to create shadows underneath the clouds. And I think I should have left it at this point. Shouldn't have been messing around with it, because right now it looks okay, and the more you mess with the sky, the more awful it looks. Trust me, the sky should be painted really quickly and then left alone. Once your paper starts to dry, there's nothing you can do. Everything you will do will only make it worse. So maybe try to practice the sky in your sketchbook or a separate piece of paper, because if you don't do it right on the first wash, chances are it won't be looking good. Okay, here I'm mixing my yellow ochre with some green, probably that was sap green, and ultramarine blue also. It doesn't really matter which color green you choose here, because that's just the first wash, which will be establishing the overall shape. And that's the first wash done. And look at the sky. Look at this transition that is going to be here. Bam! Do you see I messed up the sky even more? Yeah, right now it looks awful because there isn't anything else on the painting, so it grabs your attention really hard, and it's painful for me to see it, but okay, it will get better, I promise. So here I mixed up a green color, and I used phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, and yellow ochre. It gives a very nice green color that's great for foliage and for distant trees. Here again, I'm trying to shape everything a little bit better, but still I'm painting just a mass of a tree. It's not our focal point, so they shouldn't be really detailed. And I'm switching between different greens because it's very boring if you use only one shade of green, so you should think about that. At some places it should be more warm if the sun is hitting, for example, the tops of the trees. If there's a cloudy day or overcast, the trees might be a little bit more cool, so you should think about that in advance. And here I'm deepening this part even more, but I'll come back several times to this part with the trees and you will see the whole process. I'm basically layering different colors as this part of the painting is now wet, so I can lay a lot of different colors and they will blend themselves. I won't need to do anything. And here I practice my brush stroke. I need to make some broken lines so the trees will have a more organic form. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And here with the palette knife, I do some scratches which represent branches. Here is probably not the best time to do that because the paper is too wet, and if you do it on a really wet paint just sips to these lines that you create with your palette knife. Here I'm doing the second layer on my field, and now I'm avoiding my hay bales. And the main idea here is that you need to make your field very light and untextured in the background and more saturated and textured in the foreground. My paint got dry a little bit, so now when I scratch, it leaves these whitish lines, and the combination of two makes a pretty nice effect that looks like branches. And while I was doing that, I don't know why I decided to spray my trees because it kind of ruined them. I don't know, maybe I thought that my paper just got dry too fast and that's why I decided to do that. But as you can see, the paint is now dripping onto my field and I have to correct yet another mistake. And honestly, it's kind of painful for me to see all of these mistakes because I don't really do them anymore, but that's, I guess, the part of the process. Here I'm just cleaning this area with a paper towel, and because a lot of the paint disappeared, I would have to go back to the trees and do them again. As to the field, I'm just mixing random colors like yellow ochre, burnt sienna, burnt umber. I use Dala green a lot to mix my greens and it makes really nice green colors. So here I'm going back and I'm trying to save this part. At this point, I thought that this painting is just doomed, but you know, you never know. You always need to finish your paintings because you never know if it actually savable. Is there a word? Savable? Well, if it's savable or not. And you just need to go through this awkward and ugly stage and to believe in yourself and to believe that you will do whatever is in your power and whatever is in your skill set to save this painting. If not, well, okay, you will learn from your mistakes, but if you abandon your painting, you will probably never learn how to overcome your mistakes because you will get too frustrated and you will not have the skill set that it takes to critically think and to come up with ideas that may save the painting. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Now I'm painting hay bales, and again I'm taking yellow ochre, a little bit of burnt sienna, and I think right now I'm filling them in with Verona gold ochre. That's the lightest earthy yellow color that I have on my palette. The sides of these hay bales are a little bit darker, so I use burnt sienna and burnt umber, and I also add neutral tint. And honestly, at this stage of a painting, when it's going towards the end, I usually mix whatever I have on my palette. Like I have a bottle of different shades of green and I also have a bottle of different shades of brown. So I'm just mixing whatever feels right. I use the colors I already have, so I keep the same tones in my painting and I don't come up with new colors every time. Here is where I create a little bit of texture in the foreground, and that's very important in the landscape, in my opinion, because texture brings everything forward. So if you want to create a sense of distance, you will need to have some kind of texture in the foreground. As you can see on my palette, all the colors are now blended in together. And I'm finishing my hay bales. The one on the left, which is in the distance, I went too far with a darker color. I think I shouldn't have done it so dark. And here I'm mixing the shadow part, I think. Yeah, that's the shadow. I mixed Imperial Purple with the neutral tint, and then I added this mix to my brown mix. The shadow isn't actually just a gray thing that's on the ground. The shadow is usually a more deep color of whatever the surface it's on. So if the shadow is on the field, it should be like a cooler version and a darker version of this field itself. It shouldn't be just a grayish color and that's it, or a purple color. It should be just a deepened and more cool version of the field. And here I'm just going crazy. I'm taking my brush. I like to do it even now with my paintings. I pretty much always do that. I mix whatever I have on my palette, all the colors all together, and I'm just going crazy in the foreground. Here I'm bringing back the highlights on hay bales, and I'm using white gouache for that. And it's always a good idea to smudge it a little bit with your finger because it looks more natural that way. And here I'm taking my damp flat brush and I'm trying to get rid of this sharp line. And if you're using a good quality paper like 100% cotton paper, you will be able to do that. And again, in my opinion, it looks much better than just sharp horizon line. And that's the finished painting. I hope you've learned something on my mistakes, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!